Well, thanks, guys, for getting on this call, having me get on this call. It's a tough time to be talking about something as unfortunate as this. Hank. Man, what can you say about Hank? I mean, he was. You know, Before we get started, one thing I would just like to say, before I came to Atlanta, Hank was one of the first people, probably one of the most instrumental guys into getting me here in Atlanta. If it wasn't for guys like Hank, I wouldn't have been here, because it was Hank who went to Ted Turner and said, "Hey, you need to get this kid by any means necessary." I remember those comments he made. He really showed a lot of respect to me, because early on in my life, when I lived in Atlanta before I came to the NBA, I knew Hank Aaron, I knew his wife, and this just such a tragic loss at this time in our lives. It's been a tough time we've been living in, but man, what a wonderful man he was. So with that, if you guys have questions, go ahead and shoot.
Okay, we will start with Chris Kirschner.
What do you think, not Dominique, what do you think Hank meant to the city of Atlanta?
Well, everybody know what Hank did from a athletic standpoint, from a baseball standpoint, but what Hank stood for socially, to bring social justice, to stand on the wall for guys like me to prosper in today's world. He went through an amazing time, tough time, where he was able to persevere and stand above it and become one of the greatest, baseball players of all times, and one of the greatest people to, from an iconic standpoint, a social standpoint, that they've had in this city.
Terrell Thomas.
Dominique, thank you very much for taking the call today. When you think of Atlanta sports, you two gentlemen are at the top of that. You think about yourself, you think about Hank Aaron. During your heyday, of course, you gentlemen didn't play at the same time, but during your heyday and just receiving the information that Hank was the reason in which you ended up in Atlanta Hawk. How close was your relationship, and what does that mean to be two of the top iconic figures when you think of Atlanta sports?
I can't even tell you some of the conversations Hank and I have had over the years, and the tutelage and the information he has given me, for a young man as well as a basketball player. But some of the most unbelievable, intense concerts that you could have with somebody when they talk about building who you are, building something bigger than yourself. That's why I got the term, always be willing to build something bigger than you. And, that came from Hank. Hank and I had many conversations. His wife, Billy, and I had done many events with the Night Negro College on different social issues. But, Hank was more than a baseball player, man. He was a figure that brought about change and opportunity to people of color.
Thank you.
Mark Medina, USA Today.
Dominic, good to see you. Thanks for doing this, and my condolences for Hank's loss here. When you're talking about what he's meant to you over the years, do you have a favorite memory or moment that you guys were able to have together?
Well, we had a lot of moments. We had a lot of moments that we actually spent together. Actually, when his wife was supporting the Night Negro College Fund, Hank and I had the opportunity to sit down and talk about many things. He talked more about basketball than he talked about baseball, because he was such a big fan of basketball, and like I said, the confidence that he showed in me. And he said to me many times that you're going to be a special player in this league. You're going to be a special person. You just keep doing it the right way. But one of the things that I remember him saying is that you got to set example for people that come after you. And how do you do that? You do it the right way. You're doing it about being either having humility. You do it by just doing the right thing. And the right thing a lot of times is hard. And a lot of young guys don't know how to do the right thing, as far as how they present themselves to people and how they give back to people. So the give back aspect that I've learned over the years has become from the Aaron family.
Okay, Raphael.
Hey, Dominique, thanks for taking the time to talk to us about Hank. You already spoke about what he meant to Atlanta and what he meant to you, but on a national scale and even global scale, do you think he got the credit he deserved and the attention that he should have gotten for what he did and what he stood for and who he was as a person?
No, he didn't. He didn't get near the credibility and homage they should have paid to him. But it was the time we lived in that they refused to give him that, you know. But even through all that, he was still able to stand above it all. And in baseball, if you talk about history of baseball, you can't talk about history of baseball without talking about Hank Aaron. So his peers knew what he brought to the table. His peers knew what he meant to the game of baseball. But he should have got a lot more credit than he got.
Allison.
Hey, Dominique, when was the last time that you saw Hank Aaron, and what was that conversation, and where were you guys?
Well, it was some time back, and I believe it was at a game that I saw him. I can't quite remember, but it's been some time because, you know, he's been going through some medical problems, and, you know, so, you know, when you're in that phase in your life, you know, you tend to let people live their life, you know, and you let them reach out to you when, you know, they want to talk or they have a moment that and time that they want to bring back up. So, you know, Hank has done that with me. And, you know, I remember when he had his dealerships here, I used to go by the dealership and see Hank there all the time. It was great to, you know, to see a guy like him who's so iconic and he's sitting in his dealership in his office. That was wonderful.
Rashad Milligan.
Oops, I didn't even know I was unmuted the entire time. My bad. But hey, Dominique, sorry for your loss. My question for you, you know, kind of going off of the previous questions, as an Atlanta icon yourself, what would you say is the importance of, you know, icons and legendary people receiving their flowers and their roses while they can still smell them?
Yeah, I think it's very important. I think it's very important you give people their roses while they're still here. It's easy to give it to them when they're gone, but Hank should have been put on a pedestal many decades ago. But, you know, the thing for me is to be mentioned. I feel honored, you know, to be even mentioned in the same breath with Hank Aaron, because he put this city on the map before anybody, you know, as far as sports. And he just kind of paved the way for me to carry that torch. You know? So I'm honored to, you know, have a statue in this city, and Hank Aaron had one, you know. But man, you know, all that's great, but, you know, oftentimes we don't appreciate what we have until it's gone. And Hank is one of those guys. So, you know, give them their roses, give them their respect while they're here. And he didn't get enough of that respect.
And to follow up on that, I know this is about Hank today, but do you feel like you receive that love when you're going throughout the city and everything right now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel a lot of respect, especially from the people of this city. This city has kind of made me one of their native sons. So from that aspect, yes. But could there be more credibility and homage paid? Yeah, of course there could. But, you know, now with our new ownership we have now, man, I couldn't be happier with any ownership I've ever had, you know, I've been a part of in my life. Then this is the wrestler group. But, you know, before that, yeah, I thought there's a lot of times where, you know, wasn't given that credit, you know, wasn't given that respect. But, you know, it changed when he came along.
Next question from Charles Queen.
So like in the New York Times, a big story for Hank, he said that he had to live like a pig in a slaughter. Let's see, a pig. He said pig in a slaughter camp. Do you think that, I had never seen that quote before. Did you ever take homage? Did he ever use you as a sounding board when he was talking about the struggles he went through in the big spotlight?
Well, you know, it's so many iconic guys I've talked to, from the Bill Russells, you know, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, all these iconic players who played in a very tough time. And some of the guys played in that civil rights movement where, you know, a lot of things wasn't accepted except for their jersey. And, you know, it's so many injustices has been done to people like that. But when you can stand above it and live above all of the rhetoric and all of the injustices, that's the testament, in my opinion, of a real man.
Don Stenson.
Thank you, Nick, for taking out this time. It was reported that Hank Aaron received up to like 3,000 pieces of hate mail a day when he was about to break Babe Ruth's record. Did he give you any advice, or did he talk to you even about some of the hate that you received coming up?
Yeah, and I've experienced some of that, in high school. So I can understand what Hank went through. Maybe not to the extent that he went through it, but I remember having a cross burning in my yard in North Carolina because I made a decision to go to Georgia. So yeah, I've witnessed racism. I grew up in a civil rights era, but outside of all of that, man, all that does is make you stronger. And I can't imagine what these guys went through, especially like Hank, the things that he had to really keep his mouth closed and endure, to be accepted and to break a record in sports, and people hated it, And I think that's, the world is built on love, is not built on hate. But some people can't let it go. Even to this day, some people can't let the hate go. And how you conquer hate, you conquer hate through love. But people who don't love themselves can't love you.
Back to Chris.
Off the field, what would you consider Hank's greatest accomplishment?
Oh man, I think it's a lot of the work he did with young people, really giving knowledge and tutelage to where they can have healthy options in their life to hopefully do something special. I know because he did it to me as a young NBA player coming in. Hank and his wife Billy too. I've learned so much from Billy, and we became really, really close friends for many, many, many years. So I've known the Aarons for over 30 plus years, and so I've seen and I've witnessed some of the things that they've done to help people. And Hank was just a greater person. He was on the court. He was off the court. He was equally the same.
Next question from Andrew Friedman.
Hey, Dominique. Sorry for your loss, and thank you for doing this today. It's obviously been a few years, but do you remember when you first heard of Hank and kind of, especially as a Black man, what it was like watching someone thrive in baseball or just in sports in general?
When I was growing up, I was a baseball fan before I was a basketball fan. Baseball was the first sport I ever played. So everybody knew about Hank Aaron because I grew up being an Orioles fan in Baltimore. So who hasn't heard about Hank Aaron and all the exploits and things that he's done? So we knew about Hank Aaron as a kid. But one of the things when we were kids, we knew our history. We understood our history, and history gives you a platform to build from, to be successful in something in your life, using those examples to have opportunities for yourself.
Mm-hmm. And just kind of as a quick follow-up, I'm 21, so I never got to see him play. What do you want kids my age and younger to remember about him, both as a person and a baseball player?
Well, I think the thing that, I hope people remember about Hank, he had to endure most and most. Mm-hmm. So that means to me how great of an athlete and how strong of a person he was to go through so much. I mean, he had to be a exceptional person with inside to withstand all of that pressure, and to perform under those type of circumstances. And you got to be a super person, and a will inside, a drive inside that's going to keep you above all of the negative. And kids got to understand how tough. I hope people understand how tough he was mentally as a person, because in today's world, I don't know too many people who could deal with that type of pressure and still perform on a superstar's level.
Thank you.
Terrell Thomas.
Dominique, when Hank Aaron broke the record in the early 70s, you were still a teen, about 13 or 14 years old. But what people may not realize, of course, social media wasn't around back then, but baseball was the marquee sport. You had baseball and boxing, the attention that we see the NBA getting today or the NFL getting today. That's how baseball was highlighted. Do you remember the night in which he broke Babe Ruth's record, and where you were in North Carolina? Did you see what was the feel or the sense in the air on that night, if you remember?
Well, I knew, I remember how people of color particularly Black people, celebrated and how proud they was of him. I mean, because, you know, Babe Ruth was a god. He's a god. And to break his record was, to a lot of people, blasphemy, you know. But Black people really cheered and really celebrated and was proud of that moment.
Winding down here, Raphael.
Dominique, you just spoke about that moment. When you think about him running the bases and after that home run and the man come out the bullpen, I still flinch every time I see it, even though I know what's going to happen. But when that happened, do you think that was one of the most iconic plays in history, or where do you rank that as far
question. It's in the top iconic moments in history. And if you remember the people who were watching that when he hit that home run and he's running the bases, when he get, you know, people were going crazy, he didn't show any emotion.
Right.
He didn't celebrate, you know, he wasn't jumping up and down. He was cool as he's always is, you know. And that's the thing that struck me more than anything, of how cool and calm he was after he hit that home run. Most people would have been just up in arms, you know, I mean, jumping up and down and celebrating, but he didn't, you know, he was just cool. Because I think he was looking for somewhat a reaction from people, or how they was going to receive him for breaking that record.
And this is a quick follow-up. I know he's gone, and I understand that right now stadiums are named after banks and, you know, to make money, but is it time for a stadium to be named after him?
That should have been done a long time ago, period. You know, I mean, when you talk about iconic athlete that come to this city, Hank Aaron's the first. Hank Aaron's the first. Yeah, so he should be immortalized outside of just his statue.
Thank you.
Okay, a few left. Edward Powell.
Dominique, in 2007, I bought a Toyota Camry from Hank Aaron's dealership. I still have that car with close to 300,000 miles on it. I want to ask you about the idea of Hank Aaron doing business in the city of Atlanta. The idea of doing business with not only just anybody, but probably business with people who didn't like him. I want to know what your business conversations were like with him.
You know what? I don't know how people disliked Hank. Hank was a gentle soul. He really was, man. He wasn't a confrontational guy. He wasn't argumentative. He was just a soft-spoken guy. He spoke with conviction, but it was in a very pleasant tone. So anybody say they didn't like Hank or had a bad experience, it's hard for me to believe, man, because all the years I've known Hank, he's just been a gentle person. Unbelievable. Even the question, I mean, I'm like, really? Nobody liked him? I mean, some people didn't like him. Only the reason I think didn't like him because of what he did, you know? That's the only thing I can think of. What other reason why you wouldn't like Hank? It's strange.
All right, Chris Kirschner.
When you reached superstardom in Atlanta, I'm curious, what did Hank tell you of how to deal with that pressure and the magnitude that comes with that?
You know, the biggest thing Hank told me is just be yourself. Be yourself. Don't be something that you're not, and be willing to work on your craft all the time, you know, to stay ahead of the rest. But be yourself. Don't try to be something that you're not. He said, if you be yourself and just do things the right way, things will happen for you. He said, you know, it's the reason why you're here. The reason why we lobbied to get you here. And so Hank is, you know, is a big reason, one of the big reasons for my success, just his early tutelage, you know, for me as a young man. You know, he was a part of that.
Okay, and last question, Rashad Milligan.
Yeah, Nick. So, you know, you're a Hall of Fame athlete, and, you know, we saw some of the work that you were doing this past off season with special needs and the Duncan Challenge. When it's all said and done, when people are telling your story, what do you want people to remember Dominique Wilkins as?
Oh, that's a great question. I would think that I would like to remember as a person who brought his all, who gave 110% all the time, never quit on you, never made excuses, and always looked to make other people happy. That was my biggest thing, to see someone else happy. And what I gave, I gave so much and got so little back, but never made excuses. And that's the thing I would like people to know about me, the person who stood for others as well as he stood for himself.